but just let's assume that somebody is listening to this and they really still don't get Bitcoin. They see that it's, more expensive than it's ever been. They definitely know that, Donald Trump and the incoming administration are signaling positively about it. Um, but I think the major conversation around Bitcoin has really shifted to Bitcoin the asset rather than Bitcoin like the network.
Mhm.
So could you run our listeners through just the high level distinction between capital B Bitcoin, lowercase b Bitcoin, and maybe talk a bit about kind of Strike's role in the Bitcoin ecosystem?
Yeah. Well, I think first to understand the difference between capital B Bitcoin and lowercase b Bitcoin and this concept of an asset versus a network brings me back to gold, actually, and why I think gold failed us in many ways in our modern day economy and is not the world reserve currency that it maybe once was. The reason is because when gold was operative in a local economy where I was transacting locally with my butcher, with my tailor, with my grocer, and I can physically hand over a gold coin and settle with that bare physical instrument, gold was great. It was governed by the physical laws of the universe, right? So it was very hard to make more of it. Everyone had equal rights that could acquire a gold coin. It was very easy to keep track of who had what because you either had the gold coin or you didn't. And so it worked well as a monetary instrument up until the point where we needed to scale to billions of people, scale to economies on the internet, have digital transactional use cases. That was when we had to deposit gold into banks and corporations and centralized institutions. And that is when gold failed us in many ways, David, is because at the end of the day, in today's world, you have to rely on a central party to achieve transaction finality for gold. And this is especially apparent in, half of the world lives in under some form of authoritarian regime or some party that wants to act against their best interests nefariously. And people can't use gold in a scalable way as a money or currency or monetary network that acts in their best interest. You're reliant on your government, on your bank, on a central corporation to operate at the scale that the economy desires today. Now, Bitcoin solved this, and why people say the digital version of gold or the better version of gold is not only is Bitcoin a physical bare instrument, there's only 21 million of them. It has similar properties to gold, but it's also a digital network as well. And that's the piece that gold is missing. What's the gold monetary network? It's you and I, David. It's humans. It's that we have to get on a plane, we have to drive a boat, we have to ride a car, we have to walk across town to hand the gold somewhere. Bitcoin has accompanied with the asset a network. And it's the combination of both a digital asset and a digital network, which allows it to solve for the one core weakness that gold had, which is how do I achieve transaction finality without having to trust a bad government, a bad corporation, a bad bank? And that's a problem that everyone in the world has. And that reliance and trust has proven to be a core issue in serving the monetary function that we rely on to function as society. So that's the big difference. That's the difference between capital B and lowercase b Bitcoin. And that's why sometimes it gets confusing because are you talking about the monetary network or the monetary asset? And us as a Bitcoin community, we've tried to improve our rhetoric over the years. And as a company at Strike, we try and focus on both. We see immense value for the American people and for the globe in having both a monetary asset that is digital, that is a lot harder and scarcer than gold, that's more divisible, easier to verify, easier to transport, cheaper to transport. But then I think the network is also of like a public utility like the internet. It's a digital network where as opposed to brokering communications with a lot of the American ideals of there's a freedom in coming and going, there's equal rights, there's a freedom in opining. It's the same exact thing, but for value. So we think of the Bitcoin network as the value transfer protocol for the world, similar to the internet as the communications protocol for the world. And that's an entirely different asset that Bitcoin brings to society that needs work and needs support and needs products that meet consumer demands. And the combination of the both, I think, is going to change the world. But that's the core idea. And it's lost on people sometimes. But gold didn't have that. Other physical instruments like corn doesn't have a network, but
Right.
Bitcoin does.